Is it live? Oh, this is so weird. Yes, apparently it is. Hello, coders. I hope you've had a fantastic week. I hope you've had a good, productive week. I've had an extremely busy week, and in today's live show, what we're going to do is talk about some of the courses that I've got going on, other bits and pieces, plus we're going to be talking about the podcast. I've got a load of updates that I want to mention, new guests coming on, all of that kind of jazz. I've also got a discount code for one of the courses in particular, which we're going to be talking about now. Let's just talk about it now. So the course that I've been doing for the past 6+ months, it must be longer than that, is for Packt Publishing. It is a course about microservices and Python. So it's building microservices using Python. We use a whole bunch of tools and technologies, such as Flask, which is a micro framework for Python. We use Swagger to document the APIs. We use Docker to actually create the infrastructure. We use MySQL for some of the data storage. And yeah, it is in my opinion, it's a very well-rounded course, I think, because it teaches the fundamentals of microservices. So that at the start, we talk about the theory. We talk about what a microservice is in comparison to things like a monolithic system. So we take a look at the architecture, the differences between the architectures. We also talk about the security best practices. And we talk about OAuth 2, and we talk about how to deploy these things, how to test these things. And you end up with this order management system. And this system will allow users to register and log in and then select a product from the home page or the products page, and then create an order. So it's an order management system. And all the code is available. It is available for you to download and use and pull apart. It's on GitHub, and that's being forked, and I've dealt with a couple of issues already that have all been sorted and fixed. So yeah, it's a course that has taken me a long time to do. It's a bit like the Docker in Motion course, but you can't rush these things, because these things take time, and you have to explain the fundamentals, I feel, from the off, and then go into sort of an intermediate and then an advanced types of topics. But the discount that I've got, and if you followed me on Facebook and Instagram today and Twitter, you may have noticed that I've been tweeting and Instagramming these things. It's 100 coupons. So for the first 100 users, you can get the course for free, for complete free, right? So you don't have to pay a penny, and you sign up and you get this code, and you can then get the course at Udemy for free. Now you can also get the course at Packt Publishing themselves, but also what they do is distribute the course out to other places. One other place is Udemy. They got in touch with me a couple of days ago and said, look, we've got 100 free coupons, or 100 coupons that will allow for 100 free copies. So it's a first come, first serve basis. Now, if we go over to the browser here, we can see that if I can find the button, where's the button? There's the button. So if you go to the Udemy itself, you can go to the search and then just type in hands-on, so hands-on micro services with Python. And there we go. Click on that. This is the course. It's the first one that comes up. It's already got 10 ratings. It's a 4.5 already, which is pretty awesome. If we click on here, we can see that it's called the Hands-On Microservices with Python. Build robust and fault-tolerant application with Python. So it's usually $124.99. With the current discount, it's $12.99. However, with this coupon code, it is free. Now, you can get this coupon code from the description in the video. I should have mentioned that before. It's the first link in the video description. Click on that, and you can get it for free. What I'll do is, because this is a live stream, let me just push this into the chat. Therefore, anybody who's watching this now can actually get it. So let's just grab that link and find the chat window. Where are you? Here we go. So I'm going to just do 100 free copies of the course. And then comma, here is the link. All right, so there we go. So anybody who's watching this now can click on that link, fill out the form, and then you get that coupon code. You can then enroll in the course for free. Let's just go back to the browser. So let's just talk about the course itself. So what you'll learn. So what defines a microservice and how microservices differ from other architectures, i.e. a monolithic architecture. I talk about the advantages and disadvantages, because it's just because this is a new, well, it's not new. This isn't a new concept. This is not a new thing, but because it's kind of like it's now in the mainstream microservice, everybody's jumping on this, and I don't think that there is a lot of people I'm aware of that just don't appreciate the negatives of a microservice. There are disadvantages. So you kind of need to have a balanced opinion as to what you're going to do. Yes, okay, I've done a course on microservices, and yes, I should probably be pushing microservices, but in fact, I work with microservices on a day-to-day basis as a freelancer, and I'll tell you now, put my hand up now, if anybody says that microservices is the solution to every problem, it's just complete utter nonsense. There are issues that you have to appreciate with using microservices. So we also do how to secure microservices as well. So that's a big part of that. Essentially, you've got lots of moving parts, and those moving parts need to be secured. But I go into a lot of depth and detail as to what parts need to be secured and how you go about doing that. We also talk about how to deploy microservices in Docker. Now, I have a course I should mention from Manning Publications. That link for that course is in the description down below. That is a 6-hour or 5.5-hour long course on Docker. So that covers the whole of Docker, in the, the fundamentals of Docker. It's a very beginner friendly, and then it goes all the way up to advanced level Docker course. The section in this course, however, on Docker, it just scrapes the surface. It just teaches you what you need to know to use Docker with microservices. It doesn't talk about all the raw core parts of Docker, the Docker objects, how Docker layers are created, and so on and so forth. It just gives you enough to use microservices, deploy microservices using Docker, but it's a very important part of the whole microservice architecture. How are you going to deploy this kind of stuff? So then we talk about how we actually design microservices, because, a microservice is totally different from a monolithic application. There are, for a start, more than one thing. So you have to consider how you're going to design it, how all the API calls, the network traffic, all of that are going to be hanging together. And then that also goes into how we're actually going to monitor a microservice. And then we talk about different tools that we use with Python. So for example, we use Flask, which I've mentioned, which is the micro framework. We use SQL Alchemy as a means of an ORM layer to connect to different data stores one being MySQL. Yeah, and it's 2 hours and 51 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm not sure if I can highlight that, but that's it. It's 26 lectures. And the first one is the building microservices in Python. That's the sort of the first section. It's kind of a groundwork type thing. What is a microservice? How microservices are structured? What tools are used to build microservices? How to handle data in Flask? So, you know, this course is great if you just want to learn Flask. Okay, you don't have to use this course just for microservices. There are so many different things that you can take away from this course. If you use them in microservices or not, you're still going to learn something. So how to handle it in Flask. So this is talking about the models. Creating a basic microservice in Flask as well. So this is just, you know, creating the first one. And then after that, we have the design stage. So we've talked now about the fundamentals, how microservices work. We've even created our first microservice. Fine. Now we're actually going to be designing the system, because I mentioned before that we're actually going to be designing an order management system. And we have different components in that microservice architecture. One being the user registration service, the product service, the order service, and then how the order management service could be improved. Because I personally think, you know, as a course lecturer, you can't just give your students an example project and not talk about not talk about the areas of improvement, right? Because I would like to think that the students, the people who are learning stuff from me will actually take the project away and make it better themselves. Because by making it better yourself, you are reinforcing the things that I've taught, and you're changing it and altering it to the way you want it to be altered. So I think improvements is extremely important. The thing is, right, in my experience with teaching or being taught, you kind of, from university and courses, college courses and so on, you kind of get a curriculum and you stick to that curriculum. But then once you go out into the Wild West and once you actually get into the industry, you kind of just dropped into it, and you're blinkered to the possibilities. So this is what I'm talking about when we talk about the how to improve the microservices. This is talking about the different possibilities of the microservices. And I would like to think that this is a jump-off point for anybody to go, yeah, I'm going to try that suggestion out, and I'm going to learn and reinforce my own understanding of what I've learned already on this course. Okay, so after that, we then build the microservices. So after we've designed the microservices, we build the order management service. So that's creating the front end, creating the user microservice, creating the product service, and the order service. After that, we talk about security best practices. We talk about implementing OAuth for identity and access control. OAuth and OAuth 2 are very important parts of an API. An API, a RESTful API, that is what we're building with these microservices. Security monitoring tools, and how to lock down microservices from public access. So here I'm talking about API gateways, I'm talking about public and private subnets, VPCs, whatever you want to call them. They are tools that you can use to make your application far more secure. And I've done this in a kind of an agnostic way, in the sense that I'm not saying that you should be using AWS, I'm not saying that you should be using the other cloud providers there. This isn't centered on a single cloud provider. If you want to learn microservices, you kind of need to understand how they can be secured and deployed on many platforms, right? It shouldn't be tied down to a single platform. Then we talk about documenting, testing, and deploying microservices. So how to test a microservice, how to deploy a microservice, the various different deployment strategies of a microservice, and how to document the microservices using Swagger. Swagger being the API, the RESTful API documentation tool and testing tool. And then after that, the final section is containers in Docker. So how to deploy microservices using containers. We talk about Docker Swarm. We talk about an overview of the commands, and I demonstrate an overview of the commands. And then what we do is we deploy the whole thing. So this is like the final sort of like final gold star. You get to this point, you've deployed the whole thing, it works, everybody's a winner. The requirements, you should have a basic knowledge of Python. So I don't really go into a lot of detail as to the fundamentals of Python. I need to assume that you already know Python, and if you don't know Python, I have a ton of free courses on Python on YouTube. So do check that out. If anything I say in this course is well over your head, do check that out. And you don't need any knowledge of microservices because that's what I'm teaching. So this course covers microservice fundamentals and advanced topics with hands-on demonstration of how to implement microservices using real-world examples. So that was the important part, the thing to me. When I was given the opportunity to do this, I wanted to build something. I didn't want to just say, this is what a microservice is. This is X, this is Y, this is something else. I wanted to actually give or provide the student with something that they can actually, I'm not going to say look or feel, but something that they can take away with and go, yeah, I've actually built this. This is actually a working microservice and I understand it. You will learn to make your applications more reliable and fault tolerant using microservices with Python, no matter how complex the business logic is. That is an important part of microservices. Keeping things nice and simple and making them separated, decoupling the logic from your monolithic application into a series of microservices. Excuse me. So this course demonstrates how to design, build an application using a series of microservices. The application in question is an order management system, which we'll split up into individual services. In a hands-on manner, you will learn topics such as data modeling. So this is the SQL alchemy. Data storage. So this is not only is this the MySQL data storage part, but it's also Docker volumes. So I talk about volumes and bind mounts for Docker. And where am I? Blah, 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 which will split up into individual services, a hands-on manner, writing API requests. So this is the Swagger bits and pieces, so creating API requests in the Flask framework. You will also learn to secure, monitor, and scale your microservices. So this is the Docker section. So talking about Docker Swarm, using things like Docker Compose as a means of scaling the microservices, and we also talk about the monitoring tools as well. And then finally, you'll learn how to use the Docker containerization technology to isolate, manage, and monitor and deploy microservices in Docker containers. So this is kind of like the icing on the cake. You get to this point, and yeah, you now have a series of microservices. And then a bit of a spiel about myself, and then some things about who this course is for. So developers who want to build microservices based on Python, sure. And if you want to code to build robust fault-tolerant systems with Python, this course is for you. So what I'm going to do, I scroll right to the top here. Woo, there's so much stuff in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just dive into the terminal. Because I'm going to just find the right button. Here we go. Ta-da! Right, okay, so we're in the terminal now, and I've switched to the Docker machine that I was using in the course. And again, if you want to use the course, if you want to get the course, there is a link in the description below of this video, which will get you the course for free, and there is only 100 coupons available. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to do an ls and make sure I'm in the right place. So this is the services. You'll understand and you'll gain knowledge of the whole deployment process when you get check out the code, read the README, and so forth. So you get this services folder, and in this services folder, you get these services. So these are all different Git repositories, and you check these out. And if I was to go into the front end service.git, you'll see that we have a Docker file. So I talk about Docker, how to make Docker files, how to make Docker images. And you'll also see that we have a Docker compose.deploy file here. I'm just going to cat that out just to demonstrate some of the code. So I talk about this Docker compose file and how we can use that to deploy our services. And what I'm going to do is just do docker ps-a just to list all of the services that are running on this Docker machine. These are all the services that you will end up with. So we have the front-end service, we have the product service, we have the order service, and we have the user service. Now, so there's a bunch of services, but there's also another set of services that actually store the data. So we have, for example, our DB service. So we have a product_DB service, which is the service, or I shouldn't say service, it's the service in the sense of Docker, but essentially it's a container that contains the database for the product DB. Bear with me a moment. So, yeah, it's so you get a whole bunch of containers, and these containers are both the web servers and the database servers too, and they're all connected and they work using that Docker compose file, and yeah, they all run. If you go to the browser, you'll see the whole site running, and you can log in, you can register, you can do all sorts of bits and pieces, and yeah, do check out the course. I'm really interested in your feedback, and the reason why I'm interested in your feedback is I'm doing another course. I'm doing another course for Pact Publishing, and I'm literally just starting this out. The course is a Python clean coding course. So we're going to be talking about all the various clean coding techniques. What is clean coding? What is messy coding? If something is clean, how do you define messy code? We talk about all sorts of different principles with that, and the definitions of clean code, how to make clean code. I have only literally just started this out. Okay, I've literally just started this course. So if anybody has any suggestions as to what you would like me to teach in this course, then please let me know. Put your thoughts down in the comment section below. Hook me up on Twitter. It's a Python clean coding course. And I'm going to be starting to record this weekend. I've scripted the first sections, and I've created a lot of the code. I've already created a lot of the code, but there is certainly a lot of room for maneuver, especially in the later parts of the course, for anything that you would like me to put in. If you don't understand a certain concept, or you want me to discuss a certain concept of clean coding in more detail, then do let me know. Clean coding is like one of these, it could be seen as one of these buzzwords, your code's clean, but what does that actually mean? So I want to sort of approach that course from a very sort of beginner friendly sort of mindset, a mindset that you already know Python, but you don't know how to make your Python code cleaner. Cleaner being more readable, right? So, and also if there's any sort of design principles that you would like me, or design patterns to throw in as well, that would be very interesting. So I'm interested to get your feedback on this hands-on microservices with Python course, because If there's anything in there that I have, I needed to I should change in the next course, then that would be really, really handy. So the first 100 free users, just jump on and just let me know what your thoughts are on with the course. That would be fantastic. Another update is that not only am I doing this other course, there is a possibility of a book. Yeah, I know. I've got lots on. A possibility of a book, and I say a book possibility in air quotes. This is something that I'm talking to with a publisher already, and we're coming to and fro with the proposal. We're discussing the structure, that kind of thing. So we're in very early stages, very, very early stages. It might not even happen. But I will keep you updated as that progresses. I'm not even going to mention what that could possibly be yet, because those things may change, but that's in the pipeline. So if you're interested in actually having something physical to read, then of my work, then do stick around, because I'm hoping that will happen, but we'll see. Let's now talk about the podcast, because the podcast is also something that is taking off. And when I say taking off, it is flying. It's flying quite high in such a short space of time. And first of all, I just want to say a massive thank you to all the guests that have come on the show so far, and all the guests that I've interviewed that I haven't yet put on the show. So we have a backlog now of interviews where I've interviewed coders and people that are connected in some form to the industry, and we're going to bring them on every Friday. We're going to push one of those interviews out. So the people that I've interviewed recently are extremely patient, because yes, I've interviewed them, but I may have interviewed them several weeks ago. Some of them are from the conference I did, or the conference I went to, not conferences I did. I don't do conferences. The conference I went to in Miami, which is the Sunshine PHP. I'll just show you this one. And one of the interviews that did go out last week was the interview I did with Kat Zine. And that was a interview about PHP optimization. I saw her talk, and she was kind enough to allow me to interview her after the conference. So, and that was brilliant, because I was able to pick her brains about PHP and how to optimize PHP. She's also a Go developer, so we were talking about that as well. The differences between going from PHP to Go, all of that kind of thing. Now, the future podcast guests that I've got, they're very interesting people. I'm only going to interview interesting people who I find interesting. We've got people, well, I'm not sure if I should say, in the sense of, I don't really want to give too much away at this stage, but we've got people from all walks of life, people from all sort of avenues of influence on the industry. People who are extremely passionate about what they're doing and how they're doing it. What are the things that they are doing, the projects that they're doing. Some really, really interesting and thought-provoking podcasts. Let me just have a look at a list. Bear with me just a second, just to make sure I get the names correct. I should have had all of this prepared. Today's been a real busy day. So do bear with. I'll just go through. That is the wrong button. There we go. Okay, so in no particular order. So in no order as to when they're actually going to be released, but we have Ash Ferro on, and that was an very mind-blowing talk. Mind-blowing talk about software development and the various things that he's been doing. He's from New York. He's a speaker. He's an author. He's a volunteer at various places, sort of coding sort of clubs, if you will. And it was a talk on compassionate coding. Okay, compassion and coding, two words that don't necessarily go together, but should do. And two words that you don't necessarily think together, but you should do. And it was a very interesting talk. After that, or I'm not going to say the order of these things, but we also have Antonio, who has a project called DevLids. DevLids is a project all about laptop stickers. So he's got a website that he himself has taken photos, or he's used other people's photos of laptop lids, photos that he has obviously been given permission to use, and he's created this sort of online gallery of dev lids. Now, this is such an interesting project because the project is a sort of a snapshot of trending history, in the sense that, laptops come and go, right? But the laptop stickers that you put on the laptop, they are like statements. They're statements, right? And if you have someone who unfortunately passes away and they have created this laptop sticker and it's on that website, then that's like, that's like a statement in time. That's fantastic. And also, if you have multiple laptops, or if your laptop dies and you have another laptop, you can go back and actually look and see what that previous laptop looked like. So I think that's a wonderful project. And then we have a fellow YouTuber by the name of Kyle Cook, and he has a website, or a YouTube channel, I should say, called Web Dev Simplified. And he teaches code. We got in touch, and I did an interview with him talking about all the things that he teaches. We also talked about soft skills as well. So he came on. He wanted to talk about soft skills and his experience with soft skills, and the analogies that he made were fantastic with soft skills. So 3 people who they're currently scheduled up, and it's very inspiring, interesting interviews, very thought-provoking interviews. So these will be on iTunes, Spotify. They'll also be here on the YouTube channel too. And then coming up, well, we have all sorts of people. I mean, I don't want to. So right, I'm going to be doing 3 podcasts in the next this weekend. So we have a lot of content that's going to happen. And what I would like to do is get to a point where I've got more content than the weeks that I need to put out, because what I can foreseeing with myself, with the course, with the possibility of the book, with all the other bits and pieces, all the tutorials that I want to do here on YouTube, I'm going to get very, very busy, and I don't want it to dry out. So by having this sort of backlog of interviews, and I push them out every week, then that to me is extremely sustainable. But coming up, we have Jeremy Onion again on the show, and he'll be talking about recruitment and other bits and pieces. We've got people from all over the place. We've got speakers from the Sunshine PHP, also speakers who were at the London conference, the PHP UK, quite recently. We've got various people from very interesting industries, or industries that are big players with this web development scene, I suppose you could say. And what I would like to do is I would like to produce some form of page that you can go to and actually sort of look at the schedule coming forward. So yeah, the podcast is very busy, and it's actually being listened to a lot, and it's incredible the amount of attention that's had is fantastic. And what I would like to say whilst I'm talking about this is, if you want to come on and talk about your development story, then please let me know. Please get in touch. because I'm attacking this from the stance of I'm not going for a specific person. I'm not going for a specific sort of part of the industry. I don't want to cover just the news. I don't want to cover just, Linux developers or DBAs or anything like that. I want to I want my podcast to look like the tapestry of web development. Web development is so broad. I don't want to limit myself or pigeonhole myself into any kind of specific niche of web development, not at this stage at least. So it doesn't matter if you're a manager or a coder or a QA tester or someone who is getting into this industry or someone who's been in this industry for decades or someone who has written books or speaks at conferences or runs conferences. I had Adam Kolb on the other day talking about Sunshine PHP. So it doesn't matter what level you're at, as long as you're passionate about web development and coding, as long as you've got a story that you want to tell and tell it you can tell when someone is passionate about what they do because, it kind of like glows from them when they talk. And this is something that I find fascinating. Personally, I've learned a huge amount from these people. And I'm just talking to them like a casual conversation. This is how I would talk to someone at the pub. So, and I am just learning and learning and learning. And I would like to think that I'm sharing that knowledge with everybody else. So the podcast is really growing and I'm really thankful for it. And it's something that I didn't think would move this fast, but it has. And that is awesome. So thank you ever so much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. If you're listening on the podcast, that's kind of my end thing. And happy coding. Let me find the right button. Happy coding, guys. Do check out that link. To get the course for free. And for someone who is doing this as kind of like one of their hobbies, their side hustles, you can call it, giving away something for free can be quite sort of like, I spent 6 months on this thing and I'm giving it away for free. That's nuts. But it's something that I'm passionate about and it's something that I would like to improve. And the only way I can improve is by getting your feedback. So, yeah, please let me know what you think of it. But anyway, I'll leave that there. Thank you ever so much for watching. Happy coding, everyone. I'll see you again soon. Cheers. Bye.